now we're down by 3. Look inside yourself, what do you see? The pain is in your mind, no, nothing stops me. Everyone is looking at me. Heart is pounding, now we're down by 3. Look inside yourself, I know what I see. Do you have the guts to do it for me? Gonna sweat, gonna work, we're gonna burn, it's gonna hurt, we're gonna fight, we're gonna score, we're gonna win, we're gonna war. Right of the glass, kick some ass, kick some ass. Right of the cage, turn the page. Time to break, not gonna choke. Game over, no class, don't gloat. If we win, we'll be the GOAT. Do you have the heart to give him some hope? Everyone is looking at me. Time to protest, I'm on my knees. Raise my fist so that everyone sees. I'm gonna stand up for what I believe. Gonna sweat, gonna work, gonna burn, it's gonna hurt, we're gonna fight, we're gonna score, we're gonna win, we're gonna war. Right of the glass, kick some ass, kick some ass. Right of the cage, turn the page. Gonna sweat, gonna work, we're gonna burn, it's gonna hurt, we're gonna fight, we're gonna score, we're gonna win, we are going to war. Right of the glass, kick some ass, kick some ass. Right of the cage, turn the page.
Here we go.
Welcome to Puckin' Pigskin. Great sports fans talking hockey and football with a dash of everything else.
Hello, sports fans and friends. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube and Facebook Live. We're coming to you live from Puckin' Pigskin World Headquarters in Red Deer, Alberta. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I go live and post. And don't forget to drop your comments and questions into the chat because viewer interaction is one of the best things about doing this live. Got another great show for you tonight. Ray and Benny from Ray and Benny Talk Sports will join me in a couple minutes to chat about the Winnipeg Jets, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' big game on Saturday, and more. Then my conversation from last night with Clark Munroe, who's a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. But first, let's start with a new show segment called Hot Topics. CFL football playoffs continue Saturday with Montreal visiting Toronto and the BC Lions in Winnipeg. Ratings have been down last week with games on Saturdays instead of Sundays. Will anyone stop the Blue Bombers in the West? I actually hope so, yes. Sorry, guys. But no, I don't think anyone will. Will anybody stop the Argos in the East? No, I don't think anyone will. Bo Levi Mitchell was left out of the playoff game on Saturday for the Ticats and had some pretty strong words for the media after. And hey, the Raiders win. Firing the coach and changing quarterbacks looks like it works. Philadelphia Eagles continue to be hot with an 8-1 record, while the Chiefs and Ravens follow at 7-2. The Arizona Cardinals continue to be the worst in the NFL right now with 1 win and 8 losses, followed by the Carolina Panthers at 1-7. And in hockey, the Minnesota Wild have dealt D-man Kalen Addison to the Sharks for prospect Adam Raska and a 5th-round pick in 2026. The Wild then acquired vet Zach Bogosian from the Lightning, and the Lightning got a 7th-round pick in 2025 in exchange. Net guards have been a hot topic in the hockey world since the tragic death of Adam Johnson. Since that incident, the WHL has made net guards mandatory for all players. Do you think the NHL should also make net guards mandatory? Let me know in the comments. And will anyone stop the Golden Knights from repeating as Stanley Cup champions this season? I don't think so. Golden Knights are tops in the league right now with 11-1-1 record, followed by the Bruins at 10-1, and the Canucks and Rangers both at 9-2-1. And the San Jose Sharks continue to be bottom feeders at 1-10-1, followed by the Edmonton Oilers at 2-8-1. All right. So my first guest can be found on social media talking about Winnipeg sports, especially the Blue Bombers and Jets. Ray and Benny. Let me get you here. Where are you? That's the fun of doing this live, right? Ray and Benny, welcome to Puck and Pigskin.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going great. How are you guys?
Can't complain.
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
No worries. Let's let me just find my notes here. Whoops.
That was very interesting that you're bringing the heat that you hope the Bombers don't win in the West. You know, I'm going to take issue with that.
Do you know, it's only because you guys win so much and have won so much in the last 3 or 4 years. It's not that I don't like the Blue Bombers. I love Zach Collaros and Adam Bighill, and it's not that I don't like them. It's that I'm just tired of them winning.
Don't forget we went 29 years without winning anything, so kind of do.
That's fair.
We're trying to catch up in happiness with all of y'all in Calgary for all those years that you guys won.
Yeah. So as I said, the Blue Bombers are hosting the Lions this weekend, and it would be easy for a fan to say their team is obviously going to win. Give me your guys' honest, unbiased opinion. How you think the game's going to go this weekend? Let's start with Benny.
I honestly think it could go either way. As much as I am a Bomber fan, BC has played them very well this year. Obviously, we saw them in that first game. You know, they took it to the Bombers. Bombers got their revenge in the second one. And that third game, BC had them. But the Bombers flipped the script in the second half. The D started playing better. Collaros, yes, he made mistakes in that game, but he ended up doing enough to help the Bombers win that game. So, honestly, I see, you know, both offenses are very good. We know that. Bombers D is probably playing a little bit better than BC's D down stretch, but I do expect the Bombers to win ultimately, but I can see this also going BC's way as well.
Yeah, it really depends on the weather, you know, to be honest with you. If the weather gets bad, it's not supposed to get too bad, but even if it gets wet and a little mucky, that's in Winnipeg's advantage because BC has yet to prove that they have a running game. And I think in a playoff game, if it does get cold and if it does get mucky, you need that running game. And if it does get cold and mucky, I think that's totally in the Bombers' advantage, never mind being home field. I think the weather will be in the Bombers' advantage because they can run the ball all day long.
So does Winnipeg have a running game at all? I haven't noticed.
I think even without the weather, that Bomber running game is going to be a huge factor because Oliveira has been obviously very, very good this year, right? So I think they're going to need to use that and pound that BC front seven and wear them down quite a bit throughout the game and then just take it over. Because we know BC can score quick, right? They've got some very good receivers. Keon Hatcher just about 200 yards last game against Calgary there in the semis. So, yeah, there should be an exciting game, though.
Hollins, Rhymes.
Yeah.
No, they're
McInnes.
Yeah. They
the
are
benched Lucky Whitehead.
Yeah. And you know, talk about wide receiving cores. The Bombers had a strong one all year round, but without Dalton Schoen, that might be an issue, to be honest with you. if the Bombers do have to air it out late in the game to keep up with BC, yeah, especially if Nick Dembski's not at 100% either.
Yeah, that is a concerning part with Bailey, Dembski, and Dalton Schoen not practicing yet this week. But hey, this is why you paid Kenny Lawler the big bucks to kind of come back. He's going to have to step it up.
Yeah, and you guys kind of ran right into my next question, which was going to be to maybe update us on any key injuries or roster changes heading into the weekend.
Well, yeah, that injury list is long, but a lot of them are just for rest and maintenance. It's the receiving core that's the real issue for me. Looking at that part with Dembski maybe and Schoen probably out. That's where my issue is. Or concern.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what if they practice tomorrow, because then that'll be a good gauge if they're playing or not. The only other one on that list was Jeff Code, I think, was on there as well as the do not practice, I think. So he worries me as well, because the Bombers obviously need to get after Vernon Adams and keep him in that pocket to have success. So, and the Bombers have shown without Jeff Code in a game that defense is pretty pedestrian.
Yeah, and you touched on the weather. Any clue what the weather is looking like right now for Saturday?
It's looking like 0 and clear, really. I mean, it'll get a little bit chillier, I guess, by the time game's time. It's 5:30 Winnipeg time, or Central time. So, yeah, it's looking way better than it probably should be for this time of year.
Yeah,
Perfect football weather.
Yeah.
That's true.
Considering the last two West semis we went to were brutally cold, this is quite the change.
Yeah, and there's some fun in that. Don't believe
Yes,
me.
it is.
Especially if the Bombers are winning, you don't feel that cold.
No.
But, if we're on the other end of that score, who knows?
Yeah, I went to a game in Calgary here against the Riders. God, it's probably longer than I think, but it seems like about 8 years ago. And it was like minus 50, I swear. And it was so cold. It was just brutal. But I think the Stamps pulled out a win in that game, if I recall. I don't really remember because I'm getting old and my brain may have froze a little bit that day.
Yeah, you definitely use some brain cells on those cold weather games.
How much has this Blue Bombers team changed from last season?
Well, the O-line's a bit older. The age is what the issue is with
Yeah,
everyone.
really, just age.
And that age hasn't really shown up, I don't think, throughout the year. It hasn't been an issue for me. I don't know about you, Benny.
No, I mean, there's been questions after games, right? The questions after that first BC game when they had 7 sacks. There was a question if the O-line had gotten too old, right? But then they rebounded and had a pretty strong season after that. So, yeah, the only change really is age. You could see it in the list of nominees that the Bombers had for rookies, right? There was really none. Yeah. They nominated their punter as the rookie of the year. So,
yeah, and not only that, 11 All-Stars on the roster. Any All-Stars on the roster there surprise you guys, or did they maybe miss somebody in your opinion?
No, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, and we're pretty much in agreement with all of those. I think both of us were looking for, what's the running back? McManus. We thought McManus, I think, would make the All-Star team on the East. Did he make the East? I don't think he made the East. I think it was Parker from Toronto who made it. So that was maybe a surprise for us because he was such a playmaker and he could play in the pass, the rush, the run, pass coverage, I mean. So that was maybe a bit of a surprise. Or maybe he wasn't a CFL All-Star, one of the two.
Yeah, otherwise not too many surprises for me on there.
Yeah. Claros and Vernon Adams were 1 and 2 in passing yards and passing touchdowns through the season. Oliveira was number 1 rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Do you think this will be a game with a lot of offense and scoring, or do you think it'll be more defensive?
I'm going to go the offensive way. We've seen BC's D give up a lot of points lately in games. I mean, even 2 weeks ago against Calgary, they gave up, 40? The Bombers, for the most part, have not given up a ton of points in games, but that BC offense is kind of rolling. And it depends what you get. If you get good Vernon Adams or amazing Vernon Adams from last week, yeah, this score could get high. But if they can cause Vernon Adams to make some mistakes, then it'll definitely go the Bombers' way. But I see him an offensive outburst as long as the weather stays what it is. If it gets colder, if it gets snowy, it gets rainy, then maybe it's a different story. But otherwise, yeah, high scoring for me.
Well, I guess kind of medium high scoring for me. I see it happening or kind of playing out like it did last game. Some good offensive players putting some points on the boards, but also the defense having to come up big at the end of the game. I think it will be another 1st to 30. Whoever hurts 30 first in this game is probably going to win the game.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Let's go to the East now. Montreal is in Toronto. Give me your predictions for the East game.
Oh, how can I go against Toronto, man? How can I go against Toronto? Like, they are 15-1 with Chad Kelly as the starter, and they only lost that game because he got injured. Like,
Yeah.
they might have lost
That's
it
true,
in the
yeah.
game. I don't predict the future, but chances are they would have won that game. So Montreal has a great defense. Everyone's heralding their defense, but that Toronto team as a whole is just deadly. One of the best teams I've seen in the last decade for sure.
Yeah, Montreal's chance to me, or only chance, is if that D plays lights out and can somehow shut down Chad Kelly in that Toronto offense. The two out of the 3 games that Montreal did play Toronto this year, they were close. They lost by 8, and then 3 in another one. Then they got blown out in the second one. But so Montreal has actually played Toronto well. The only team that probably from the East that has. But really, Toronto has outclassed everyone in that East division. I'll be shocked if Montreal pulls this off.
Yeah.
So right now it's sounding like you guys are Winnipeg, Toronto in the Grey Cup. What's your that'll be a hell of a game, and really that's the game that CFL fans need to see because those are the 2 best teams in the league right now. What do you see Winnipeg pulling out of that one? Be honest, don't be homer.
That is a hard one to predict. It's definitely the matchup that we want to see, especially since the CFL schedule makers didn't let us have it in the regular season. We didn't see that matchup until later in the year when Toronto was already solidified as first place. They didn't play Chad Kelly. Well, So if that matchup happens, I'm going to have to take the Bombers this time. I'll take them going out. This is kind of like the last dance kind of season for the Bombers, I think, with this core. A lot of them will come back, but I think at their prime, this is the big shot, and I think they'll realize that, and I think they'll go out in the bang.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Toronto right now as of today before knowing any factors, weathers, what happens after this weekend's game. I would probably take Toronto to win that game. Just because of the record, and even in that game that they ended up playing the Bombers, they played with their backup, Cameron Dukes, and then were winning and then threw in their third stringer, and that's part of the reason why the Bombers ended up coming back and winning that game. So Toronto, to me, has been the better all-around team this year, consistency-wise and everything like that. So right now, I would take Toronto over Winnipeg.
Yeah, well,
hurts me to say that, though.
You know what? I am going to bring up the fact that they played a much easier schedule, especially earlier on in the season. The media's like, oh, you shouldn't, whatever. It's true. The East was not as good, especially earlier on in the year. And that made for easy trucking for Toronto.
Yeah, but Winnipeg lost to Ottawa earlier in the year. So, then they lost to Hamilton. They ended up losing to Saskatchewan. Teams that Toronto didn't end up losing to at all. So, Toronto was just more consistent throughout the whole year. Winnipeg had their ups and downs. So,
that's very true. That's very true. I guess I'm the tiebreaker then here, because I definitely think it's going to be also Winnipeg and Toronto. Toronto deserves to win because of the record and everything, but I mean, I think Winnipeg is going to pull it out, and I hope they do. Toronto, I heard a fun fact today. Toronto hasn't played a meaningful game in 57 days.
Yeah, that's crazy. Jeez.
Yeah.
That can't be good.
We thought the Bombers were bad last year when they had clinched it so early and had all these bye weeks, but yeah, Toronto clinched it way earlier, and they're waiting for this game for 2 months now.
Yeah, exactly. So I just recently got into your show, and I love your show because it's a good mix of CFL football and NHL hockey, just like my show, of course. So let's get into some hockey talk with the Jets, who started off 3-1, losing opening night to my Flames, of course. Since then, kind of been 50-50 with a couple loser points from overtime games. Lost a couple of games to the Golden Knights, but then again, who hasn't? Right now, they sit third in the West Central Division, 1 win behind the Avs for first. Give me your quick impressions on the start of the season so far.
Fun fact, when we were thinking of names for our podcast, we were like, yo, Puck and Pigskin would be cool. And then, of course, we look it up. We're like, nah, it's taken. So any which way, Benny, you want to go talk about hockey?
You must have been around before me, though.
We've been what, 2 years now?
2 years, just over 2 years. Yeah.
Oh,
2 years.
okay, so I probably just got it before you.
Totally, you just got it.
Up and down season so far for the Jets. And in some of those first few games, especially that Flames game, Markstrom kind of stole that game away from the Jets. I thought the Jets were the better team, and they were good in the first few games, but couldn't find ways to win some of those. And then they kind of got into a bit of a slump and have pulled back out with 2 wins in a row. So up and down, top line is playing well for the most part. Again, they had a bit of a slump in between. The power play, though, has been atrocious. Gotten better over the last few games. Penalty kill, though, needs to improve as well if they're going to have any chance. Right now, it doesn't look like the Central, besides Dallas and Colorado, look very strong. So there's a very good opportunity there for the Jets to maybe pull themselves into that third place spot and keep that spot for a while. But I can kind of see them going up and down from third to a wild card spot throughout the season.
Yeah, the way they're playing, I think, is the way that I kind of see them playing throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
I have them as a top 3 team in the Central, not depending on that wild card. So taking Dallas and Colorado out of the equation, they're going to be that third place team. So they're kind of where I thought they would be. They might get a bit better, especially if Hellebuck starts to be a little more consistent, playing at that Vezina level that we've seen him play before. Actually, if he gets at that level, they can definitely be the number 2 team in the Central. So yeah, nothing surprising. I'm looking forward to them getting Velarde back. He could be a big factor in the first 2 lines. He's a top 6 forward that brings a lot of versatility, a lot of speed, a lot of size. So it'll be interesting when he comes back, see what the Jets do. Because I don't know, they're playing good from lines 1 to 4. They're playing fairly consistent. Second line needs a little work. Haven't been scoring as much as we want to, especially with Ehlers, but he's that streaky scorer, and I'm sure he'll get on track soon.
Yeah. It definitely helps that third line kind of picked up the slack with Lowry, Niederreiter, and Appleton when the top line of Scheifele, Connor, and Iafallo were not getting any points or goals or anything like that. So it's good to have, because we haven't had that where the third line in the past has kind of chipped in. It's usually relied on the top 2 lines, and if they're not going, we're in trouble unless Hellebuck's pitching a shutout. So like Ray said, Hellebuck has kind of he's had a few really good games, but a few softies. I think we looked at it, there was 8 out of 11 games, not including last night's game, they had given up 3 goals or more, which is very uncharacteristic for Hellebuck, really. I know the Jets' D has not been good for the most part for the last few years, but Hellebuck usually does enough to keep that goals against down. So he'll need to step it up a little bit, and that'll definitely help. If that power play gets going and the penalty kill figures it out a little bit, yeah, they'll have a strong season.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hellebuck sitting with 6 wins and 3 losses, but the goals against average of 2.98 and a save percentage 892. So without watching any games, that tells me that the Jets are giving up goals, but still finding a way to win. So speaking of Hellebuck, him and Scheifele just signed new identical contracts. Give me your thoughts on the contracts.
They're good. We're excited. They're long because you never know what's going to happen at the end of those, right? Because they're both hitting 30 here. But for now, I like them, and it was quite shocking because I didn't expect them to sign it then. Maybe throughout the season, maybe something would have happened. But when they did it, I was quite shocked that it got done.
Yeah, there was no buzz in Jets land.
Nothing.
What was coming up. And you know what? The contract's beneficial for both parties, for all parties. If it's not working out come trade deadline, those are very tradable contracts. You have these guys long-term, a player like Scheifele for another 6 years at 8.5, same as Hellebuck after this year, a goalie like that under $9 million. So I think they just came to an amicable agreement, and it worked out very well for the Winnipeg Jets and Cheveldayoff. Cheveldayoff has been really good at making moves. Like even this Blake Wheeler, this PLD trade. You know, we've talked about Iafallo and Velarde, and Kupari's been playing great. And I think PLD is like the 11th ranked forward on the Kings right now. So shout out to Cheveldayoff. He's been great.
Yeah, PLD's only sitting at 6 points right now, where Iafallo's at 10 already. So you expect that to have been flipped around a little bit. And that's even with Velarde only really playing 3 games so far for the Jets. So far, it's a good move. We'll see how it plays out, but a good move so far for Chevy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of goofed there and mentioned Blake Wheeler, which oddly enough was going to be my next question. Do you feel the Jets are missing Blake Wheeler or not really?
No. No, it was time. It was tough way to kind of end it between the two of them. I mean, the Jets and Wheeler and that, but it was time. And whatever was happening in that locker room, there's a lot of rumors of what was going on in there. I don't know if he was a big voice of it all or keeping things in disarray, but yeah, it was time for him to move on and time for the Jets to move on.
Yeah, I agree. He was like the last remnants of that Atlanta Thrashers culture team that I think, yeah, the Jets just need to get rid of it. He's not that he's ineffective, but he obviously wasn't as effective in his early years, and his role or his capabilities of a player probably looked a lot better on the Jets, as we're seeing now with where he's at with the Rangers. But yeah, it was time. He's a great contributor to the community, great captain. Uh, in regards to, I don't know, maybe he wasn't a great captain.
Maybe that part was the only bad part about him, really, right? Because yeah, it's
Yeah,
great in the community and all that stuff. And I mean, he stuck around here, he signed contract, a longer contract to stay in Winnipeg and all that stuff. So, and he was great on the ice. There was no question. He was very good on the ice for the Jets.
yeah.
Kyle Connor in 2021 and 22 had a breakout year, scoring 47 goal and 46 assists in only 79 games. I recall seeing him pop up on all kinds of highlights, and I was like, who the heck is this guy? How nice is it to see Connor putting up numbers while the hockey world was talking about your Scheifele's and your Wheelers and your Liney's, and here's this guy who was almost never heard of, and he's putting the puck in the net.
Yeah, he definitely was not never heard of in Winnipeg. We've loved this kid since he took the step up to the big team, but he's definitely been quietly going under the radar when you have guys like Wheeler and Scheifele getting all the attention, and Hellebuck and Bufflin and all those guys. So we knew about him, but he's been great for Winnipeg. He's just that offensive powerhouse that you kind of love to have and love to watch.
Yeah, defensively not so good, but offensively very good. And like you say, when Laine was here, yeah, Connor took a back seat to Laine, even though for the most part Connor was still chipping in a lot of goals, and then like you say, had that breakout season as well. So kind of helps you forget about Laine, because if we didn't have Connor with that goal scoring prowess, that would have definitely made things interesting for the Jets to see who would have stepped up into that sniper kind of role. So he's kind of made you forget about Laine a little bit, and Laine's kind of been unforgettable in Columbus, not setting any goals anywhere close to what Connor has done. So yeah, definitely a great pick there to have, and great thing. Another guy who has stuck around and signed a longer contract.
So are there any surprises to you guys so far? Guys not scoring, or give me your thoughts on anything that's came up so far in your mind?
Probably Ehlers, really. I expected him to take a next step, and when we did some bold predictions before the beginning of the year, I thought, mine was Ehlers is going to lead the team in points, but so far that has not happened, and he's looked okay, and it's kind of shocking to see that where he is in his career, that it's still happening to him, where he's kind of streaky, like Ray said earlier, right? He'll get some points like crazy and then kind of taper off quite a bit. So right now, for me, it'd be the play of Hellebuck and the play of Ehlers.
For me, it'd be the lack of defense. I thought that unit would really take a step forward this year. Like, they're not the biggest defensive unit, and they're playing in a big division in the Central. So they're at a disadvantage there. But I don't know. I really just thought they'd be more dynamic, be pressuring the puck more, create more turnovers in their zone. But they're really being pushed around, especially in the corners and retrieving the puck. That's been an issue, and it's still going to be a concern for me all year long until they bring a big guy in, because we know Logan Stanley ain't that big guy.
Who else is there? Declan Chisholm. That's really it.
That's the issue. That's the issue. So yeah, they're a little small. They can move the puck. When they're turning the puck around, they're pretty effective. But in their own zone, I'm a little worried, especially when the other team gets possession of the puck and they can put a body in front of Hellebuck. That's my big concern.
And that's why they've struggled against Vegas so far, in both those games.
Yeah, you're right there. Just watching them the other night, they definitely look like a fast team and a small team. And I was actually thinking they could use some size. I think it was against Edmonton. Nurse was roughing somebody up, I think. So, yeah, definitely could use a little bit of size on the roster. Maybe that's my only say. And Ehlers, you're right about Ehlers. I was looking at the stats earlier today, and I was like, Ehlers is near the bottom. So definitely a big surprise there for me.
Yeah, and we're used to seeing big teams in Winnipeg. Like when we had the success in 17-18, we had a big and fast team that went toe to toe with Nashville and took them out. So yeah, seeing this slight defense is kind of tough right now.
Guys are missing Bufflin.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've
why
been
did you
missing him
say
for a
that
few
name?
years.
Yeah,
We'd
we
take him
miss
back
big
in a
time.
heartbeat if he could
Yeah,
still
Yeah,
be
yeah.
Keep the fishing
So-
rod down.
yeah.
yeah. Collecting his money and fishing. That's all he's been.
He's just enjoying himself.
Seen a lot in the media the last few weeks about attendance being down. I looked at attendance of the arena, only 14,000 and change, I think I saw. So your games have been hovering around low 11s, high 11s. So I didn't immediately think that was terrible. Is that a bad number for Winnipeg?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
especially
think it's
especially. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ray.
go.
I was going to say, especially once they came back and Bettman said, "Hey, this arena needs to be full for you guys to stick around and the Jets to stay." Right. So yeah, it's concerning. It's a very low number. The arena holds just over 15,500 or something like that, right?
Oh, 15.
Uh,
Okay.
15,
or just
33.
over 15, is it, or something like that? So yeah, it's concerning. But again, who knows with all the factors going on? The Jets kind of let their fans or the season ticket holders kind of take a back seat to everything. It almost took them for granted. And now they got to try to build that trust back up and build that thing back up to get the season tickets up a little bit higher.
Yeah, the Jets are they're in a small market. They're in a different position. They can't be totally dependent on corporate sponsorship because we're not a huge corporate center. We're dependent on season ticket sales. They are dependent. I shouldn't say we. I've invested in the team, nothing. But they have to keep that season ticket base happy, and there has to be perks more than they've obviously given. And before there was like a 10,000 waiting list. Now it's zero.
Gone. Yeah.
It's because, and obviously the pandemic and economically, which hurts more in a small market than it does in a big market. New York, they're going to have tourists. Toronto, tourists. Vancouver, tourists. They're going to fill that arena no matter what. In Winnipeg, it's a little harder. We're dependent on our hometown crowd, and the Jets have failed to garner fans after the pandemic.
Yeah, so me not, paying that close attention to the Jets. In previous years, has it been sellouts for Winnipeg? Is this only a problem this year, or has it been a problem in previous years?
Started last year.
Started declining. We were season ticket holders for the first 6-7 years.
Yeah,
with the
pre-pandemic,
Jets.
right before the pandemic, really.
And I think maybe season 6 or 7, then it started becoming hard to sell tickets as a season ticket holder. Then you realize, oh, this is not as hot as it used to be. And then the pandemic came, and then the demand for those tickets just plummeted.
Yeah, I think last year was the first year where the sellout streak kind of ended at some point. But like Ray said, it was harder to sell tickets. So if you wanted to get rid of tickets, you were kind of stuck with them, or you're taking a loss on them as season ticket holders. But yeah, this is the worst year. But it kind of started last year, just after the pandemic, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and it's not just the 11,000; it's the percentage of the arena that's full. I think we're mid 80s, and I think we're near the bottom of the league. So that's really where the number's like, okay, we're in trouble. Not in trouble. Things aren't trending in the right direction.
Yeah, so another thing that I've seen in the media the last week or so has been talk about a decentralized draft potentially in 2025. Give me your thoughts on that, if you have any.
I'm for it. I mean, as long as the players are still there, like the guys getting drafted are still there, they can come down from the stands, they get their jersey, go up there, take pictures. You don't need to take a picture with 20 people from the organization. You don't need to hear the GMs go up there and thank the host city, congratulate the Stanley Cup winners. Like you hear that 30 times, and you're like, oh, okay, come on, get on with it, just make the pick. So I'm kind of for the decentralized. And like they said, one of the reasons was because you got everyone sitting in that small little area. It's hard to make deals. It's hard to do something without someone else kind of overhearing. So I kind of like the idea, as long as they keep the player stuff the same.
Yeah, isn't that what they do in the NFL?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they got fans in the crowd there, and you call up the guy who gets drafted by the commissioner, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what they're there for.
And it's still exciting even in the NFL doing it that way. So
more exciting.
Yeah.
I'd say you get
Well,
because
yeah,
it's
I
kind
mean,
of
yeah,
like,
look at that event.
and the TV content is more because you kind of like get a behind the scenes look at what they're doing in their draft rooms. Yeah, it's all about the draft rooms and their
Yeah.
board, and it adds another dimension to it. So absolutely.
Yeah, and it should be more always about the players getting drafted and not the 20 guys on stage and their kids and all that kind of stuff getting in the picture.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a party and a fan atmosphere in the NFL. That's for sure. So, besides the social handles there on the bottom, Twitter and Instagram, where else can people find you guys?
Oh, Benny has that info.
Yeah, again, we're Ray Benny at Ray Benny Sports, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're also on Reddit and Discord as well.
And YouTube.
And
Subscribe
YouTube,
to
yes,
us on
yep.
YouTube after
Exactly,
you
yep.
subscribe on Puck and Pigskin, of course.
That's
Yes.
right. Subscribe to Ray and Benny Talk Sports on YouTube and go watch them follow all the fancy new TikTok trends on TikTok.
We're trying. I don't know. I'm too old to get content every day. Are you serious? I'm over 40. I don't got time to put content on TikTok every day to be a star. Never mind.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me and talking some Winnipeg sports. And I'll have you glad to have you on anytime. Maybe we'll be talking about a Grey Cup championship here in a few weeks.
Hope so. Thanks a lot for having us, man.
Yeah, have us so we can come back and talk about Jonathan Huberdeau.
Hey, now.
What? No, that's gonna be a good thing. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next couple of weeks. We could be like he's thriving and now he's going crazy. I'm not.
That's true. That's true. Cue the turnaround right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right, that's Ray and Benny from Ray and Benny Talk Sports. All the Winnipeg sports talk, Jets, Blue Bombers, you name it. They got it on their show. Catch them on YouTube. Right now, I'm going to cue up the tape from my conversation with Clark Munroe, who's a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and I spoke with him last night. Let's go there. My next guest is the producer of the Rod Peterson Show every morning on YouTube and Game Plus, and he's so far a happy Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Clark Munroe, welcome to Puck and Pigskin.
Hey, Jason, good to be back.
I should say welcome back. You have been on the show a couple of years ago when I first fired this thing up, so it's your second time around.
Yeah, second time around. I was going to say, I think the first time was 2 years ago, maybe even 3, but it's been a minute. Yeah, for sure. So thanks for having me back.
Yeah, let me start off by saying that that come from behind win against Tampa Bay was nothing short of incredible. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, I watched. I missed a little bit of the second period, but I watched pretty much the whole thing, and it was pretty crazy. That kind of just sums up how the Leaf season has kind of gone so far. It's kind of been like a terrible mismatch of terrible stuff and then really, really good stuff. So that's kind of like sums up the season. Ilya Samsonov had a just horrendous start to the game, and then Joseph Wall came in, and every single time that kid gets into the net, it kind of just cements his status as this team's actual number one goalie. And it's a little bit scary because he is pretty much a rookie, but at the same time, one of those situations where you just go with the hot hand, and right now he's the hot hand. So can't really say much more than that about the two goalies.
Yeah, Leafs got down 4-1 after one period. Samsonov got yanked for the second time, I believe, this season. And when it's 4-1 game and Samsonov's getting yanked, what's going through your head at that time? Are you thinking, oh no, or are you're pretty much used to this, I guess? Yeah,
well, I was actually texting one of my buddies, Dylan, and we were kind of going through back and forth. So the Leafs scored first. Matthew Nyes had a great goal. He looks really good on that top line, and I hope they keep him there for a long time because I think he deserves to be there. But then after that, it was just like not good goal, not good goal, not good goal. And I was texting my buddy after the third one. I'm like, Samsonov's getting pulled tonight. There's not salvaging this. He's not playing well. He looks awful tonight. there's one thing when a goalie lets in a couple bad goals, and sometimes you can say, you know what, the team's letting him down or whatever. There was a few there though for Samsonov that just were 100% he should have had. So it was pretty clear that he was going to get pulled, and then a few minutes later, my buddy's like, yeah, they're probably going to score right here. Watch. And they did. And so he got yanked. And so, you know, it was one of those situations where it's first period, there's lots of time. The Leafs have an offense that can do what they've done, like what they did in that game. They have that ability at any given moment. And you saw Austin Matthews come out and kind of put the team on his back a little bit, score a couple goals, get the crowd into it as well, which I love because you kind of saw a little bit of the real Austin Matthews come out there. He was like upset with the fans that they were so quiet. So he's like, come on, which was good to see. And then, you know, they got those 2 quick goals back to back basically in the third period. And unfortunately they let one up, but Tampa's a good team. And the Atlantic Division has a lot of good teams this year. So it is what it is. They got the win in overtime, and it was a great game to watch. It really was.
Yeah, the comeback led by Austin Matthews, who scored twice there, and then Yarncrow scored a couple, including the game winner in overtime. So you already touched on it, but you have to be impressed with the goaltending that they're getting from Wall, considering he is the backup. What are your thoughts on the Samsonov situation? Has he lost the net, and Wall is now your new number one? Or
yeah, I think it's got to be that. Joseph Wall has come in and, you know, kind of everything you want to see in a goalie, he has displayed. He's got a bigger body. I think he's 6'3" or 6'4", and he just looks calm in there. And that's what the Leafs have needed for a while. And you know, it's funny, Jason, because they had Jack Campbell, obviously, and Jack Campbell came in and he looked really good for a little while, for, you know, a good chunk of time. And it kind of gave us Leafs fans a sense of relief. Like, okay, this might be a guy who can just kind of calm things down. And then he started getting a little bit erratic. He started getting a little bit impatient or a little bit, you know, floppy, and lost, you know, what kind of solid, reliable feeling. You didn't have it anymore. Samsonov came in last year. And again, it was Matt Murray looked out of position and, you know, just not good most of the year. He looked hurt most of the year, and he was. And then Samsonov came in, and you got this sense of, okay, he's calming things down. That's really, I think in the NHL these days, if you can get a goalie that just calms things down, I think that's half the battle. And it seems like a lot of goalies these days are doing a little bit too much, or trying a little bit too much, or moving a little bit too much. And that just seems what this year's version of Ilya Samsonov is. He's just all over the crease. Like he cannot stay in position. He's sliding too far, or he's moving too much, or he's getting up and down too much. And Joseph Wall just kind of seems like he's just chilling in there. He's always in position. He's not moving around too much. He just keeps it calm. His rebound control is great. And he's putting up huge numbers so far. So in terms of the goalie situation, at this point, like we're 12, I think, games in, I don't know many Leaf fans who won't say that Joseph Wall has stolen the starting spot for this team. And Samsonov, like we just saw Jack Campbell get put on waivers. I was saying today at work, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see at some point in the year an Ilya Samsonov on waivers. Like it's at that point where they almost need to send him down to work on some stuff, because it's not happening right now. And I'm hoping I'm eating my words. I'm crossing my fingers here that he does figure it out, because he had a .917 save percentage, I'm pretty sure. And those are really good numbers for him. I think he played 30 or 40 games in the regular season, had a really nice playoffs as well. So I hope he can figure it out, but something's going on, and I have a feeling it's up here, Jason, more than anything.
do you think that maybe with the Campbell situation a year or two ago, and now the Wall situation, that maybe their backup goaltender, so you think there's a little less pressure on them? You think that might be the key?
I hope that helps. Like if they can give Joseph Wall maybe a stretch of games here and just let Samsonov have some time off, and just kind of figure some stuff out, maybe. But like we've already seen Ilya Samsonov in the press, in the media, say that he's had mental health issues recently, and he's not feeling good about himself. And I think that all just kind of starts snowballing. this market that the Leafs play in is tough, and a lot of markets are tough. I don't think many markets in the NHL are soft or easy. Like there are some in the southern United States, I guess, that maybe aren't as punishing if things don't go as well. But there's a lot of tough markets in the NHL, but Toronto just happens to be one of the hardest ones. And I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself. We saw that with Jack Campbell as well, like in the media, and Edmonton fans have probably heard it as well already since he's been there. But, if he makes a mistake, he beats himself up about it, and he talks about it afterwards and says, I should have had that. I shouldn't have made that mistake. And Samsonov, I think, is going through a similar thing right now. And again, as a guy myself who's also recently been going through some mental health stuff, I can totally understand where that goes and how dark it can get. And I'm just hoping that, maybe he can find something to help him out. And again, I think a lot of it's here. And that sometimes takes some more time than physical stuff, to be honest. So fingers crossed, and I'm wishing him all the best. But right now, it just doesn't look right in the net.
Yeah, it's one thing for men in general to have mental health, but to be an NHL goaltender has got to 10 times the amount of mental health stress. So Matthews and Marner, of course, are playing like bosses, and Nylander and Captain John are as well. There's no surprises there. Are there any other surprises so far other than the goaltending?
Yeah, honestly, I think the surprises, for the most part, have kind of been bad surprises. Like they've been negative. And that's Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, John Klingberg, Ryan Reeves. These are all the guys they signed in the offseason for quite a good chunk of cash. And they put themselves, and I'm talking about Brad Treliving here, Calgary fans, hi. Talking about Brad Treliving's offseason here, he signed some decently high profile guys with name value to I guess combined it would have been about $15 million, and that money could have been going towards a couple other guys. It could have been going towards some cap relief, because the Leafs have been up against the cap wall for years now with zero relief. And this is a situation now where we're 12 games in, so it's not like it's 3 or 4. We're over 10 games into the season now, and there's been a lot of kind of I'm going to say lack of production from those forwards. Ryan Reeves, obviously, we're not expecting to get like 20 goals or anything, but Ryan Reeves came out of the chutes pretty hot with a couple of fights early on, and a couple big hits early on, and since then it's kind of been timid. We haven't seen much out of Ryan Reeves in terms of what we all kind of want him to do on a nightly basis. And obviously you're not going to fight every single night. That's not what we're asking for, but the imposing presence hasn't been as imposing as I kind of expected it to be, especially after those first couple games. Tyler Bertuzzi, to me, seems like he's just not quite there yet. I've really liked him more with the John Tavares and William Nylander combination. I think he probably has a spot there if they can just kind of leave them together for a little while and kind of let them mesh a little bit more. Max Domi looked great last game. The Leafs called up Nick Robertson, the hyped up prospect that has been unable to stay healthy long enough to get a good shot in the NHL. Him up last night, and that group with Yarncroke, you mentioned he had a couple goals, including the game winner. That group of 3 looked very, very good for a third line. And I think if they can keep that going, we might see Max Domi starting to put up some more numbers. So my surprise so far has kind of been those big free agent acquisitions that maybe haven't clicked right away. And people are already calling for John Klingberg's job. People are calling for Tyler Bertuzzi to, maybe get put lower in the lineup. Like, it's getting to a point now, but I'm hoping there is a lot of good reasons to bring those guys in, and I'm hoping that eventually we start seeing those reasons kind of come to light, and we all, Tyler Bertuzzi should be a fan favorite. Ryan Reeves should be a fan favorite. Max Domi should be a fan favorite. And John Klingberg has, he was brought in for a reason, and Jason, a big reason for his signing in the offseason was because the Leafs defensive group, in terms of production, has been underratedly bad the last 3 seasons. Since Morgan Riley had his 72-point year, I'm going to say, I think it was 3 seasons ago now, outside of him, and because of this, his numbers have dipped. There's nobody really putting up points. And I know there's this narrative around Maple Leafs that they have this offensively skilled group of defensemen, and they need to get this big bruiser to go in there and, you know, set the tempo or be more physical. And I get that. And it's probably not all that untrue, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit skewed because if you look at the actual point production, they don't have much back there for offensive defensemen. They have guys who maybe aren't overly sized, like they're not big, maybe they're not the most physical players, but they're not putting up points. So that if they are offensive, if they are soft, if they're not physical, they're not putting up points either. So something's got to change, and I think that was a big reason John Klingberg got brought in the first place, is because he's supposed to be the type of guy that can spark production. And so far, I mean, it's kind of been mixed results. He's put up a few points. He's been getting some time on the first power play unit, off and on. But, you know, he's also made some really rough mistakes back there on defense. And he's getting exposed a little bit in terms of the type of player he actually is. And I think Leaf fans are quick. If I know anything about Leaf fans, they are quick to judge a defenseman. And he's getting the raw deal on that one because a lot of people are already, like I said earlier, calling for his job. And they're already giving him the Jake Gardiner effect, the Justin Hall effect, you know, hawk eyeing him and making every mistake he makes a big deal. So he's got a tough job too. And I think, you know, if he can just kind of settle himself down and just do what he does best and move the puck really well and put up some points, we'll stop talking about it so much. But that's kind of the biggest surprise for me, long story short, is just those free acquisitions.
Short story long.
Yeah. The free agent acquisitions, I guess, from the offseason and their impact or non-impact so far.
Yeah, just remember a handful of years ago when TJ Brodie and Mark Giordano were the top defensemen in the league playing in Calgary. Now, I didn't even know that they still played on it, to be honest. they're kind of unnoticeable now.
Yeah, I mean, TJ Brodie, he does get a lot of time with Morgan Riley, but like I said earlier, he's also getting a little up there in age too. Like I think he's 34 now, and that's not like I'm 32, so that's not old. That's young. But at the same time, like when you're not putting up points and you're a two-way defenseman who's not all that physical, you kind of get lost every once in a while, and that happened last year for the Leafs for TJ Brodie specifically. At the end of the year and into playoffs, I think he might have been playing hurt, or he might have been just, you know, overworked. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but he didn't have a very good playoffs. He gave the puck away a few times. He made some mistakes. He was out of position a few times, and you know, people were upset with TJ Brodie's performance in the playoffs. And so, like I said, if you're a two-way defenseman who's not that physical and you're not putting up points, you better be dang good positionally. You better be you know, shutting down teams and doing something. And if you're not, I'm starting. You know, he only got 1 year left on his deal. I'm starting to lean towards, if there's going to be a trade made, he's making $5 million. I wouldn't be shocked if TJ Brodie's name is in the trade to make the money work in some form. Like there's got to be money out if there's going to be money coming in. And TJ Brodie, for me, is a player who, yes, he's been pretty good for the Leafs. And if they keep him, he'll be pretty good for the Leafs. But at the same time, if they really want to upgrade that blue line, they might have to subtract from the blue line in order to do that. And he might have to be the guy that ends up going. Mark Giordano, I will say, as a third pair guy, he's a good penalty killer. And he's good out there late in the game in a situation where you need to shut a team down, or just get a guy who's going to go out there and do whatever it takes to block a shot. Or like that's Mark.
And he is old.
Oh yeah, he's 40. He's the oldest player in the league. He's the oldest player in the league. But you know what? He's the type of guy who you want out there at the end of a game, or in a big penalty kill. He'll do whatever he needs to do to do his job. And at this point in his career, it's hard to ask much more out of him than that. And he's making $800,000, which I'd love to make $800,000. But at the same time, for his quality of player at this point in his career, he's got a lot of bang for his buck. I'll say that.
Yeah. You touched on Treliving a little earlier, talking about the deals made in the offseason. Do you feel Treliving was an improvement over Dubas, or would you rather have Dubas back?
So I'm on the record as being a Dubas guy, a Dubasite. I don't know how whatever you want to call it. I was a big fan of how he kind of ran the team for a few years. At the same time, though, I will say that you know what he did the same thing kind of over and over and over again in terms of he had a strategy, and for the most part, he stuck to it for a good five. I think it was 5 seasons as the general manager, and not like he's been with the team for longer, but as the general manager, he had a strategy, and you could tell. And every offseason, all of his moves were not predictable, but you could kind of see them coming a little bit. Where this guy fits the Kyle Dubas mold. This guy fits the Kyle Dubas mold, and that was kind of what it was for a few years. And it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work in the end. The regular seasons were great, and that's probably why he made the moves that he made because it worked. But in the playoffs, it just fell short for one reason or another. You know how hard the playoffs are, Jason. I don't need to tell
Yeah.
how hard the playoffs are. They're a different beast, and it is what it is. But last year, you saw Kyle Dubas kind of change his tone a little bit. He brought in Noel Acciari at the trade deadline, Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Shen, and all these guys were a bit different. Jake McCabe. They were a different mold than the Leaf fans were kind of used to seeing out of Kyle Dubas. So you could kind of tell that maybe he was either changing his mind on what it took to win, or somebody else had some influence in that room. So that led to a summer of a lot of chaos in terms of the front office, the management staff. There was a lot of rumors that there was a lot of miscommunication. I want this, you want this, give me this, don't give me, So there was a lot of that. And then obviously he left. So when Treliving came in, I'll say my first impression was I've heard nothing but good things about Brad Treliving in terms of his work ethic, the respect level he has from people across the league and in the media who I talk to often. I heard a lot of that. But as a fan, just from a fan's perspective, I also saw a wild ride for the Flames over the years of Brad Treliving. A lot of good times for sure. Like he definitely built a solid team there for a while. But there was also some, maybe not so good contracts, or maybe guys getting overpaid, or guys leaving. Obviously, the guys who left, I mean, that speaks for itself of how sticky that situation was with Kachuk and with Gaudreau. But at the same time, I saw a guy who is going to bring a new vision to the Leafs. So I was at least open to it because you knew right away, just with how he talked, with what he was saying, that he was going to bring a different mentality to how he built the team. And you saw it in the offseason. A lot of those moves were not Kyle Dubas type moves, especially Ryan Reeves. There was probably 6 times in the last 5 years that Kyle Dubas could have acquired Max Domi and never did. And it was always rumored because of his last name that he was going to come to the league, and he never acquired him. And I always had a feeling that was a Kyle Dubas decision not to get Max Domi. And then the first thing Brad Treliving does is bring in Max Domi. Tyler Bertuzzi, again, there was rumors that he was going to get traded to the Leafs. Never happened. And then the first thing that Brad Treliving did was bring in Tyler Bertuzzi. So he definitely had a mentality change in terms of who he wanted to bring into this team, how he wanted the team to play. And it was clear. And so far, I don't think we've seen the results that he probably wanted from this team yet in terms of how they play. But I think it's coming, and there's flashes of it. So I will say the physicality, I'm going to say like the Western Canadian blue collar style, you see flashes of it. And I know that that's the kind of game that Brad Treliving likes. And now I think it's just a matter of getting Sheldon Keefe, the head coach, to kind of buy in a little bit more to that and get the guys playing that way. But there are flashes of some really good things. And then, as the season goes along, I just kind of hope those flashes turn into longer flashes.
You walked right into my next question by mentioning Sheldon Keefe. Give me your thoughts on the coach so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk from the fan base about Sheldon Keefe. There has been for a little while. There was there was a lot of talk that when Brad Treliving came in, that he was bringing in somebody else. And as of right now, that hasn't happened. They actually gave Sheldon Keefe an extension. So that caused a little confusion as well among the fan base because people weren't sure exactly about that. But at the end of the day, an extension for a head coach means almost nothing in the NHL. They could fire him tomorrow and nobody would care. In the front office, I mean. Sheldon Keefe would care, but he's getting paid either way, so I don't think he cares that much. But he would. He's a kind of guy who has had a lot of success. He's had a good team in front of him for his entire tenure as head coach. He's got a lot of talent, and I think at times he overcoaches, and then at other times he undercoaches. And I just, as a young head coach himself, like I have to keep reminding myself how young he is and how much growth he still has to go in his coaching career. But I feel like he just hasn't found the balance yet in his coaching style. There's a lot of times like they've gotten multiple bench minors for too many men on the ice this year. And in the NHL, that shouldn't happen. And it sounds like from what I've read, it's like he doesn't know who to send on the ice. So he says more than one name and then more than one guy jumps over the boards. And it's like you can't do that kind of stuff. So I don't know for sure. Obviously, they're getting wins for the most part. And so far this season, it's kind of been up and down. My biggest thing with Sheldon Keefe is that I just question his ability to correctly motivate the team. And I've seen a lot of clips because the Leafs are a very accessible team. They post a lot of their locker room clips. They had a whole documentary series about it. Called All or Nothing a couple of years ago, which was a great documentary series. So you see and hear what he's kind of saying in the locker room, and none of it sounds wrong. He was a player himself, so he knows what should and shouldn't be said in a locker room. But there are a lot of nights where, as a fan myself, I just kind of question, why isn't the team in a better zone right now? Like they should be dominating this team, or they should not be getting dominated by this team. So mentally, what's the blockage here? Why isn't this team ready tonight? Why are they looking sloppy? Why, there's a lot of that kind of talk around the Leaf fan base. So I feel like a lot of that at this point, because he's been there now I think he's been there for 4 seasons since Mike Babcock left. I think this is his 5th season, I'm pretty sure. But there's a lot of questions now that he's been there for a while. It's kind of like, okay, so what is the disconnect? Is there a disconnect? Because that's kind of where we're at now in his coaching tenure in Toronto is he the right coach for this group? And can he get this group going the way they need to be and can be going on a nightly basis? Because there are just a lot of nights where a lot of us are kind of just scratching our heads as to what's going on.
Yeah. So Marner and Tavares both will have 2 years left on their contracts after the season. If things don't go the way the Leafs want it to, and the Leafs don't make a playoff run, do you see them making any big changes?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that Nylander's contract is kind of the one that everyone's talking about right now. He's a free agent after this season. So I think there's a lot of kind of discourse, I guess, about if they sign Nylander, then what happens? Or if they don't sign Nylander, then what happens? Because I think he's really the domino now that Austin Matthews is locked up for 5 years. Nylander's kind of the domino that once he falls, then a lot of decisions have to be kind of finalized, because they don't have to sign Marner next year. They don't have to sign Tavares next year. They can kind of push that can down the road a little bit farther. But at the same time, when John Tavares' contract is up, he's going to be 35, I'm pretty sure. So if he wants to stick around, he's going to have to take a pay cut. Like there's just no chance that John Tavares can come back at $11 million. So I think there's some talk about, okay, so what if Nylander takes Tavares' contract, they suffer for 1 season with too many big contracts, and then Tavares comes back and re-signs in his older years now at like $5 or $6 million or something along those lines. Marner's going to get a raise. There's no way around it. He's a 100-point player every year. He's he's a top penalty killer on the team. He does it all. And there's no chance he doesn't get a raise, especially when Matthews got one. So fingers crossed the salary cap just goes up. That'll help. But I think it all kind of depends right now on what happens with William Nylander. He's playing great so far. You mentioned it to start the season. He has a point in every single game so far this season. It's the longest point streak to start a year or a season in Maple Leafs history. No other Maple Leaf has done this. So he's a special player, and I've been lucky enough to watch as many games as I've been able to watch of this team since he came into the league. And I've seen firsthand the development of this player. He came in as this soft perimeter shooter, and he developed into this amazing playmaker that's all over the ice, and he's really good in the neutral zone, turning the puck back over. He's grown in the defensive zone. I'm not going to say he's a great defensive player, but he's grown in that regard. He's better now. And he's so fast. He's so dynamic. He has such good ability to just create plays out of almost nothing. And we've seen it all year. He's been having a great season. He was leading the team in points for most of the year. So once they get him figured out, and I hope I'm in the team keep him. I'm team keep him as long as possible. I'd say give him an 8-year deal, and hopefully the number just kind of makes sense. My pie in the sky scenario is that they get him for $8.8 million at 8 years. I think that number is probably low for what he's probably going to get, but that would be the rationale in my mind is that if he's a free agent, the maximum years he can get is 7 years, and at $10 million for 7 years, that's $70 million. 8.8 over 8 years is $70.4 million. I did the math, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's the same amount of money. It's just one extra year, so maybe he'll do it. I don't know. So we'll see. But he's a big key to this team doing well, and so far he's been he got an assist on the game-winning goal last game, and he's just always looks dangerous out there. So he's a big piece, and I hope they can keep him around for a long time, and then after that, figure out Marner and Tavares down the road.
Yeah. A couple non-Leaf related questions, and then I'll let you go here. Talk about a decentralized draft has come up. The teams have voted on it, and apparently it may be a go for 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to a draft. My good buddy Jeremy Corrigan, who is a Canucks fan, me and him went to the 2019 draft, and that was a really cool experience to be in the crowd. And obviously, on day one, you're up in the second deck. There aren't many fans, I don't think, if any at all, that are in the lower deck because it's all families and players. But you get to see all the action, all the GMs, all the scouts are all on the floor. They're walking around, they're talking, and I remember at one point, I was watching Kyle Dubas, and I was like, Kyle Dubas is over there talking to Brad Treliving. Oh, Kyle Dubas is over here talking to David Poyle. And you see all these GMs that you see on TV all the time. It's just such a cool and unique experience for hockey fans. And really, there aren't any other sports that do it that way. So it's a very unique experience for hockey, or for sports in general. And I was a big fan of it. However, I also see the NBA draft. I see the NFL draft. Major League Baseball's draft is completely decentralized. They don't do a crowd at all. And I see these other two, though, the NBA and the NFL, and those are huge parties. The fans are all over the arena. They're on the floor. It's packed. There's a lot of reaction. There's a lot of fanfare. You get celebrities coming up to make the picks. Or host the thing or whatever. And that can be very cool as well. And I think if they do it right, I think it would be a good event still to go to as a fan. I think it could even be a little bit better. But you're going to miss out on that, being able to just kind of see all the action take place in front of you and see when a guy picks up his phone to make a trade and stuff like that. So that's missed, but at the same time, I see these NBA and NFL drafts, and it's a huge party, and I think it would still be a great time. So if they do it right, which, Jason, I think you can agree, the NHL doesn't always do stuff right. But if they do it right, it could be really cool. I just hope it doesn't go back to their drafts during COVID, where it was just out of a broadcast studio and you got Zoom calls going the whole time. I hope it's not that, but if they do it right, I think it'll be great.
Yeah. Last question now. Of course, working on the Rod Peterson show every day, you hear a lot of talk about Connor Bedard, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts so far about Connor Bedard's season so far. Living up to the hype or not quite?
I think so. I think he's just such a great player. I got to see him. I was lucky enough to see him as like a 14-year-old when he just started out in Regina. The company that I work with, Rod's show, we are also a production company for the Regina Pats. So I was lucky enough during the COVID year, his rookie year as a 15-year-old, to be able to help the production a little bit during the WHL hub city. I don't think they called it a bubble. They didn't call it a I can't remember exactly how they worded it, but it was the hub where all the teams came to play. And it was his rookie year, and within 4 minutes of watching him warm up, you could see that he was just different. And he was 15, like barely 15. And since then you got to see him develop. I got to see several of his games as a Pat as he kind of came up and kept getting stronger and kept adding to his game. His shot was always just insane. Even as a 15-year-old, you could just tell this guy's going to beat goalies in the NHL with shot alone. Like he could just have this shot and he's going to score probably 30, 40 goals at the NHL.
He has a very quick release.
Yeah, quick release. He can shoot from anywhere on the ice and score. He can move the puck so effortlessly to get where it needs to be to take a shot. And he's got just such great vision to make plays. And he's the best part about him is I didn't think he was the best skater when he was younger, and he's gotten so much stronger there too. Like if you look at him now, kid's got tree trunks for legs. Like he's just done such great work to build his body up to be ready for this. And you saw the other night, if you saw the highlight, he kind of went end to end and scored a goal. And it's just like, this kid is just going to be good. Like he's just going to be good. It's destiny, like basically destiny for this kid to be good. And I think, there's a lot of pressure on him. He's kind of become an ambassador for the sport. And that's a lot to put on an 18-year-old kid. But he's been raised so well by his parents. And I got to meet his dad, Thomas, and I didn't get to meet his mom, but I heard great things about his mom because I know a lot of the Pats employees and they got to deal with the family. And they did such a great job of raising him to just be such a professional at such a young age. And I think he's going to do great things for the sport. He's going to do great things for the league. And unfortunately, great thing for the Blackhawks, but I can't wait. Every night I've actually watched like 4 Blackhawks games this year, and I haven't watched one in years. So he has an effect. He has a power, and I just can't wait to see this kid do great things for a long time.
Yeah, in a way, I'm kind of happy for the NHL that they got a player like that so early, but at the same time, I feel kind of bad for the Pats. They only got him for 1 year, and then he's gone, right? And he could have done. I think he could have done really great things for the Pats and the organization, but unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to do some huge things for the Blackhawks, and like I said, it's just fun to watch, and I can't wait to can see him just continue to get better. Like he's not even at his best yet, which is exciting as well.
Yeah. Well, besides producing the Rod Peterson show and showing up on Twitter the occasional time, anything else on the go, or are you just kind of taking life in and relaxing?
Yeah, I've had a lot of changes in the last little while. I have a TikTok account, which it was producer Clark, and it's back to Clark Munroe, which you can see kind of scrolling across the bottom there. But I've kind of taken a step back from TikTok just to focus on some life stuff recently, which has been great for me. TikTok was fun and I love it, and maybe one day I'll get back to it. But it was just kind of taking a bit of a toll on me. So I'm taking a step back right now, but I'm still working with Rod Peterson show, like you said. I'm doing a lot of work with the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League right now, which has been a lot of fun for me. That's where I started my career with the Estevan Bruins back in 2014. So for me to jump back into the league now, a few years later, and be able to help them kind of promote their players and promote the teams and everything going on in the league, that's been a lot of fun for me. So I put a lot of effort into that recently, and a lot of time into the Rod Peterson show, obviously, it's a daily thing, so that takes up a lot of my day. And just being a family man, just kind of getting back to my roots and getting back to my kids and sorting out some stuff on my life side of things. So it's been good. It's been a good few months, and there's some good stuff coming. So I'm excited for it.
That's good. You need to always take time for family. Family's first. That's always the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I tell fans to go check out Clark on the Rod Peterson show, but he's behind the scenes, so you won't see him. Say hi on social media, or even tune into the show and say hi to Clark in the comments. He'll always answer back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love chatting with the community there. We have such a good community of people on the Rod Peterson show, especially on the YouTube channel, the people who have been there for literally the entire time we've had the show. You see a lot of the same names, so it's always a good time to kind of say hi. It's like Rod always calls it Coffee Row. Getting your morning coffee with the crew, and it is truly that. So it's been a blast. And Jason, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no worries. You're welcome back anytime to chat about the Leafs, and maybe next Blue Jay season we'll talk some Blue Jays and stuff like that.
Yes, get me on. There's a lot. I'm already ready. They hired a new third base coach
right now, but
they hired a new third base coach today. They changed Don Mattingly's role. Let's talk.
Wow.
No, it's fine. Well, bring me back after the free agency kicks off a little bit more. We'll chat more.
Yeah, sounds great. Excellent. Thanks for coming on the show again, Clark.
No worries.
Have a great night. All right. Once again, that is Clark Munroe, producer for the Rod Peterson show, weekdays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, great conversation about the Leafs there. And we'll have him back, obviously, when the Blue Jays season starts to chat some Blue Jays maybe. But right now, sports fans and friends, I have some great big news about the show. Puck and Pigskin is proud to be joining the Hockey Podcast Network and also teaming up with DraftKings and Raycon Global. So Puck and Pigskin will be back next week at the same time and places, as always, but with a slightly different look and feel and bringing you some great content and deals at the same time. Well, that does it for me here at Puck and Pigskin World Headquarters. Go check out the Elks Call from my friends Catherine and Scout, a.k.a. the Elks Herd, at 8:30 on the Shotgun Sports Network YouTube channel from Puck and Pigskin World Headquarters in Red Deer, Alberta. Have a great night.